Originally, Amur honeysuckle was introduced through the horticultural trade. Honeysuckle kind of came into Ohio in the sort of 60s and really started to become a problem in the 1980s. The reason that growers loved it was this really pretty plant. It had these beautiful white flowers, it had these really abundant berries, it grows super fast. All of those things that made it a really desirable species to plant actually kind of made it a real problem. So there's a number of different techniques that we can use to remove honeysuckle. If they're very small plants that are just coming through, or ones that have become re-established after you've taken honeysuckle out, you can go through and just pull them out by hand. We also have what we call a weed wrench, which we can go in and it basically grabs onto the stem of the honeysuckle and just literally yanks it right out of the ground. The weed wrench is really only effective when the soil is nice and soft, because you want to get all of the root system out. So one of the issues with honeysuckle is that it can regenerate from kind of root fragments. So mechanical removal isn't always the best way to go. We actually most commonly recommend the use of herbicides. One of the methods that we use is foliar spraying. So you have basically a diluted herbicide in a backpack sprayer. We use glyphosate, which is basically a systemic herbicide. So what it does is when you treat plants with it, it's taken up and it goes into the root and it actually kills the root of the plant. Herbicides are really important when we're dealing with honeysuckle because of all of these resprouting abilities that it has. So with foliar applications, the best time to do that is either in late fall or in early spring. Those are times when there's not actually a huge amount of native vegetation on the ground. One of the things is you don't really want to be like spraying over your head and things like that, so we often use it to kind of target kind of medium-sized bushes. It's actually a really efficient way of covering quite a lot of ground with honeysuckle because you're just going in and spraying the leaves. You don't actually physically have to remove the plant. So the third method, which is the technique that we've commonly used on this site, is the cut and paint. So what we do is we cut the plant really down near the base and we use a diluted glyphosate solution. We just roll it on straight after we've cut the stumps. And it's really important to get that herbicide on, straight away. The sooner you get it on, the sooner it's going to be taken down into the roots and it will kill the plant. Oftentimes when you're treating large areas, you can miss plants, and unfortunately what happens is you tend to get a lot of resprouting from the base. So one of the ways that we mitigate that is we kind of put a dye in with the herbicide so that we can see the areas that we've treated. Cut and paint method is super effective. We tend to get pretty much zero regrowth if you treat them properly. You can also do what's called the hack and squirt method. So if you want to leave the trees standing in place, if you don't have the financial ability or the manpower to actually remove the stuff from the site, you can go in and just hack up or girdle the tree with either an axe or a chainsaw and then squirt the herbicide into the exposed area of the trunk, and that will be taken down into the roots and it will kill the plant. And the final method that I was going to talk about is we also, when we have really big trees sometimes, and we can't maybe get in with a chainsaw, we often use what's called stem injections. It's like a big javelin that you will stick into the tree and essentially it inserts these kind of glyphosate capsules into the trunk or the stems. Native biodiversity is like our kind of defence against invasive species. Our native plants have evolved with the wildlife in this area and they host so much more diversity. So planting native plants, you're going to be able to produce pollinator habitat, really great food for wildlife, really great nesting habitat for wildlife. It's really critical that we think deeply about what kind of plants we add into our landscapes, into our gardens.